Liar Games Akiyama Shinichi, Usogui's Baku Madarame, the Liar King, the Lie Eater. In a battle of wits between these colossal characters of the intelligence scaling community, who'd ultimately reign supreme? Will the Lie Eater devour the Liar King, or will the Liar King solidify his position on the throne? Let's find out. Quick disclaimer, since videos with over explanations of details tend to be longer when dealing with most characters, which make them less popular, in addition to the fact that we're dealing with two very content heavy characters in this particular matchup, we'll be summarizing the characters' feats and narrative for the most part. So for the best understanding of their abilities and intelligence, it's best to read their source materials respectively, starting as we always do with general intelligence. For crystallized intelligence, both characters have effective displays of application of their knowledge, while Baku is more versatile with constant showings of basic chemistry and physics like air poker and the Minotaur labyrinth, as well as a streets-like understanding of psychology. Akiyama has a more concrete and well-established psychological knowledge that he utilizes in all his games. Akiyama's knowledge is more profound, while Baku is more versatile. In terms of higher quality, Akiyama slightly edges out here. Now, with fluid intelligence, both characters show multiple genius-level tactics, adaptability, and situation analysis. Baku demonstrates such capacity for rapid assessment in many instances in his manga, as it pays close attention to details that others miss, such as noticing a loose button on an opponent's jacket in the Tower of Karma game to infer their unpreparedness for a subsequent round. In the Hangman game, he observed his opponent's reliance on cameras for vision. By intentionally losing an initial round, he studied the camera's functionality and blind spots, exploiting this knowledge to manipulate his card presentation and prevent his opponent from clearly seeing his cards in further rounds. In the Minotaur labyrinth, he applied knowledge of air pressure and building design to anticipate and avoid a deadly low oxygen trap, demonstrating an understanding of physics beyond typical game mechanics. Just like Akiyama, this was while he was under a true chance of death, making such keen observation and inferences even more impressive. And speaking of Akiyama, how does he compare to Baku in contrast? Well, Akiyama has great instances of fluid reasoning index in his own right. One of his impressive moments is from Pandemic game, where he quickly identifies and exposes his opponent's manipulative strategies, then uses this understanding he showcased to influence the other player's behavior indirectly, often by subtly guiding events rather than through direct confrontation. He anticipates his opponent's moves, creating believable yet deceptive scenarios to counter their plans and maintain control of the game's momentum, leveraging his existing skills and knowledge to create tools that reinforce player suspicion, gaining their trust in the process. Overall, he manages the emotional and psychological aspects of the game, appealing to players' sense of self-preservation and morality to secure alliance and prevent his opponent's advances. In the end, fluid intelligence on its own is a close battle, but ultimately it goes to Baku with a mediocre margin. Baku's ability to adapt to entirely unorthodox scenarios and apply random knowledge showcases better fluid intelligence than Akiyama when he uses his psychological understanding to control players in the Liar game. General intelligence goes to Baku with a slight margin. Moving on to emotional intelligence. Let's talk about Akiyama first now. Akiyama consistently demonstrates skill in understanding and manipulating emotions, both his own and others. In the Contraband game, his calm demeanor showcases a keen awareness of his opponent's growing anxieties as Yokoya's deception unfolds. Akiyama's controlled patience allows him to meticulously gather evidence, deduce Yokoya's scheme, and then skillfully exploit the resulting tensions within Yokoya's team to reverse the tide of the game. He doesn't overtly display his own emotions, maintaining a calculated composure while influencing others through strategic actions rather than emotional appeals. Akiyama's emotional intelligence is also further highlighted in the Pandemic game. He understands the fear of infection and uses it to his advantage, maneuvering Akage's behavior to sow doubt in Yokoya's scheme. His creation of the fake infection detector demonstrates a keen insight into the player's emotional vulnerabilities, leveraging their pre-existing suspicions to gain their trust. He even uses an appeal to a player's sense of loyalty to inspire cooperation. In the final Liar game, Akiyama's ability to assess emotional states is crucial for his dealings with Yokoya. He gauges Yokoya's overconfidence and then uses a seemingly conciliatory approach in the final stage of the game, manipulating his opponent's sense of triumph to achieve a stalemate that benefits him. While Yokoya technically achieves high monetary gain, Akiyama's actions lead to a shared outcome and even prevent further conflict, demonstrating an ability to manage both the emotional responses of others and his own to reach his goal. On the other hand, Baku's capacity for emotional manipulation is a significant factor in his success in all of his bets in the series. In the Hangman game arc, his subtle observation of his opponent's reaction to a dropped card reveals a keen awareness of their reliance on technological aids and allowed him to create a winning strategy. During the Labyrinth arc, Baku's keen observation of his opponent's pen handling and meticulous analysis of their maze-solving patterns highlight his capacity to discern hidden intentions and weaknesses. This extends beyond direct interaction. In the Minotaur Labyrinth arc, he leverages his understanding of Amako's synesthesia to create a carefully constructed auditory and visual environment, subtly manipulating Amako's perception. The interception of Morse code communication further demonstrates his ability to gather information from indirect sources by deciphering the emotional subtext of coded messages. The KY Declaration arc reveals another layer of Baku's emotional intelligence. Here, he employs psychological threats, leveraging the L file to instill fear in the MC. His negotiation with the program director is a masterclass in emotional manipulation, exploiting the director's desire for self-preservation and the program's reputation. He successfully generates a sense of urgency concerning the acquisition of Shonen News, compelling the director to make a rash financial decision. When compared, it's clear that while Akiyama showcases great emotional perception and understanding, even rivaling the quality Baku has, as they're both able to read extremely cunning opponents in the heat of their battles, Akiyama doesn't display a similar level of facilitation, engagement, or management that Baku does. While they're both in situations that would lead to eventual death, Baku is dealing with far more morally complex and painful environments that push him to use his sheer will to survive, subsequently allowing him to showcase better emotional realization than Akiyama as well. Overall, Baku takes emotional intelligence without much effort. Finally, moving on to the most influential part of any comparison, the character's strategic and tactical approaches, including their abilities to manipulate, deceive to plan, strategize, and adapt to their circumstances and approach their goals correctly. Starting off with Akiyama, let's talk about his musical chairs strategy. Akiyama's approach to the musical chairs game centered on manipulating alliances and power structures rather than directly competing for chairs. He initiated the game by forming a coalition, using threats to compel Baldi into joining his team. This alliance provided sufficient voting power to eliminate a chair belonging to Yokoya, demonstrating an understanding of how early alliances could influence the game's progression. Akiyama anticipated the instability inherent in alliances and perceiving a potential betrayal within his own group, strategically decided to boycott the leader elections once he created enough of a power imbalance between Harimoto and Yokoya's own alliance. This action created a significant power vacuum, directly disrupting cooperation between Yokoya and Harimoto. The decision to abstain from the elections wasn't passive, as now it forced Yokoya and Harimoto to operate independently. This was evident when Harimoto, acting without coordination with Yokoya, eliminated a chair that inadvertently benefited Akiyama's strategy. Beyond this disruption, Akiyama employed a more subtle form of control by forming a hidden alliance with a group of neutral players known as the Gaia, managed through Young Jump, who in turn was taking orders from Akiyama. The Gaia were manipulated into believing the main conflict lay between Yokoya and Harimoto, which affected their actions and ensured that their support was directed strategically. This created an artificial equilibrium between Yokoya and Harimoto, forcing both to expend significant resources in an attempt to gain an advantage using the Gaia. This forced spending served Akiyama's interest by steadily weakening both major factions. With that done, he deliberately allowed Boldy to betray his team, creating a public breach. This action served the dual purpose of providing crucial information to Yokoya regarding Harimoto's chair locations via Boldy giving Yokoya the numbers for Akiyama's chairs, causing Yokoya to think Akiyama would be an easy prey to deal with later, and simultaneously pushing Boldy towards attempting to ally with Yokoya. The information leak and resulting shift in allegiance weakened Harimoto's position and indirectly benefited Akiyama. The final phase of the game saw Akiyama exploit Yokoya's fatigue, which was built over time due to Yokoya getting manipulated into being paranoid about Akiyama's upcoming actions, causing him to not sleep at all. Akiyama with this utilized the previously controlled Gaia to physically overwhelm Yokoya, preventing him from securing a chair, by making a circle around of him which Yokoya couldn't break through with how tired he was. This caused an unexpected victory for Fatso, a member of Yokoya's team, as the only person who managed to sit by the end of the round. This had resulted from a carefully orchestrated chain of events stemming from the initial alliance formation, leader election boycotts, manipulation of neutral players, and engineered betrayals. The subsequent distribution of Fatso's winnings further demonstrates a broader strategy aimed at maximizing the benefits for his team. Akiyama's success rested on controlling the flow of information and leveraging social dynamics, rather than solely through direct competition for chairs. Comparing Baku in contrast in Surpassing the Leader. Baku's approach to the Surpassing the Leader game was characterized by a complex interplay of deception, manipulation, and precise timing, rather than a reliance on direct, overt competition like Akiyama had done. The initial phase of the game saw Baku seemingly passively accepting the checker role after losing a rock-paper-scissors match with Hal. This seemingly insignificant decision served a strategic purpose. It allowed him to observe Hal's actions and strategies without revealing his own plans. The subsequent calculated move of leaving his jacket on the floor after his first drug-induced near-death experience provided a crucial piece of information that Hal would later process, demonstrating an understanding of how to subtly plant information that would influence his opponent's future decision-making. The earlier rounds of the game involved Baku adopting a seemingly straightforward strategy, one which the observers interpreted as a 3 near-death strategy. The strategy involved strategically dying multiple times to weaken Yako, the referee, which in turn could make him too weak to revive Hal in later rounds, thus gathering data on Hal's counter strategies. However, his actions were less about genuine attempts to die and more about skillfully manipulating the game's timing and accumulating precious amounts of near-death drug time. These calculated near-deaths allowed him to gather information on Hal's reactions while concealing the true nature of his plan. His almost perfect checks and controlled failures served as carefully calibrated cues, feeding Hal misinformation and maintaining a facade of adaptability, even as he was pursuing a broader, more complex objective. The core of Baku's strategy lay in his exploitation of temporal factors and the known existence of Hal's memory loss. The specific choice of the drop the handkerchief game was a crucial element, designed to necessitate a focus on mental rather than physical skills, making it highly susceptible to manipulation via time-based elements. The game was a meticulously timed performance orchestrated around a specific event, the occurrence of a leap second. His deliberate choices regarding death and drug accumulation were not random, but precisely calculated to align with this leap second. Supporting this time-based strategy were other carefully considered actions. The presence of Kaiji in the tower wasn't merely coincidental. It served as a crucial diversion, planting the seed of suspicion of a hidden trick in Yako's mind, and ultimately influencing Yako's choice of the communication system to be used. Baku's subtle questioning of Hal regarding the possession of a watch served as a key step in confirming the absence of a time-measuring device that could interfere with his planned exploitation of the leap second. Baku's strategy hinged on the precise timing afforded by a leap second, an extra second added to coordinated universal time, to account for discrepancies between atomic time and the Earth's rotation. This extra second, occurring on New Year's Eve, was a crucial, largely unnoticed element that Baku meticulously incorporated into his plan. His actions following the confirmation of Hal's lack of a watch were directly aimed at manipulating the game's timing to exploit this leap second. The confirmation that Hal didn't possess a watch to independently measure time was crucial because it removes a potential counter to Baku's leap second strategy. If Hal possessed a precise timekeeping device, he could potentially anticipate and adjust his actions to counteract Baku's time-based manipulation. By establishing Hal's reliance on the official game clock, Baku ensured he would be vulnerable to the extra second. The key was the timing of his deaths. He needed to be in a specific position with a specific amount of accumulated drug time at the time of the leap second. His near deaths in earlier rounds were not about achieving a rapid accumulation of drug time, but rather achieving a very specific level of accumulated drug time to be used at the specific moment when the leap second will be added. The specific time being the end of round 9. The controlled accumulation of drug time, then, was crucial in ensuring that he would be able to utilize the extra second, making him the only one capable of responding to this unique temporal alteration. The manipulation of Yako into using the portapus telephone line rather than the standard clock was also vital. The portapus line's unique auditory signals, with its distinctive beep beep dong dong pattern, was crucial for Baku's strategy. The second dong, occurring during the leap second, created an unexpected disruption in the game's rhythm, which was calculated by Baku. This alteration was critical. While the regular clock would have simply progressed to the next minute, the portapus line would register a second, unanticipated dong at precisely 8 hours, 59 minutes, and 60 seconds, the moment the leap second occurred. In essence, Baku transformed the leap second, an external, seemingly uncontrollable element, into a strategic advantage by meticulously manipulating the timing of his actions in the game's information flow. His seemingly erratic actions were purposeful, masking a deeply calculated plan that ultimately resulted in victory through the use of the one extra second that no one else had foreseen. This demonstrates a level of strategic thinking extending beyond the immediate game and into a broader understanding of the game's external parameters. When looking at their intellectual prowess, we can see that Akiyama excels at long-term, indirect manipulation. He slowly manages multiple variables and builds up his own creative plans. His tactics are not extremely complex, but they're executed swiftly and accurately, which allows Akiyama to secure his victory. Baku, on the other hand, handles a lot more intricate pieces in his tactics. He deals with equally matched opponents and inhumane mental straining. He plans the most minute of details a long time in advance and utilize the smallest details to conceal his intentions, making it near impossible to counter him without an acute understanding of every aspect of not only the game, but also the players involved, and having a general and abstract knowledge to find Baku's hidden leap second strategy. Overall, manipulation and strategy is a close call for Baku, while deception and planning go to his favor without much, if any, trouble. Ultimately, in most potential scenarios, be it ones with inherent rules like game mechanics or just competitions with real-life consequences, Baku outscales Akiyama in all the important aspects and will not struggle with defeating him at all. After all, the Lie Eater devours the Liar King whole.